Let's start with the first and most foundational, I would call it the most foundational discipline, which is to read the Bible. I wouldn't call it the most powerful, but I would call it the foundational, that if we don't read the Bible, we don't even know what we're talking about. So my challenge in this video is to do the exercises to get through the entire scriptures, to have read everything there is to read. All right, so let's start with talking about the hope of why you would want to read the Bible. God, in his wisdom, chose to give us a storybook, right? It's not a law book, it's not a rule book, it's not a theology book. Many other religions have books like that, but for God chose to write it in narrative form. And even parts like Proverbs and the Psalms, which don't feel like narrative storybook, are still set within the story. We know who wrote them and when they wrote them and why they wrote them. So the whole book is essentially his story. It's history. We read it from front to back, and we can put it into order so that it has flow and an arc, and it has a start and an end. And that's the goal, is to understand the story of the Bible, to see the big picture. Now, there's a lot of people who have never read the Bible who have strong opinions about Jesus and Christianity and truth and things like that. But if you've never read the Bible, you're like the guy who watched the movie but never saw the book. And all the people who have read the book are telling you, you missed it. Oh, the book is so much better. It's got all the details. Because when it gets reinterpreted through somebody else's eyes and lens and put into another format, like a movie or media or a sermon or you name it, things get twisted, things get distorted, things don't come out the same way. There is absolutely no substitute for reading the book. Every Christian should purpose to read the book themselves and to make it through the whole thing front to back. And then once you've done it once, you've done it. Now you can keep doing it over and over again with the full confidence and the full assurance that, oh, this is doable, this is manageable, I can handle this. It's not quite so daunting anymore. The advantage of it being a story is that it helps us to put the whole thing together into a picture, the antagonist and the protagonist and the plot and the climax and the tension and all those things. And it helps us to take this big, thick, massive book and to put it together in a way that our minds can grasp and hold. If that was just a law book, can you imagine trying to memorize a dictionary or memorize a book of legal requirements? It'd be impossible. But because it's a story, it's actually manageable and we can get our head around it. And so the question is, well, how do we start? Because it is thick and it is big and it's not exactly written in chronological order. That's what we're going to tackle today is how do you at least start and begin and get on the path to reading the whole thing. When I first became a Christian, a brother took me to the Bible store, bought me a Bible, and he said, here you go, here's the King James Schofield Reference Bible. I want you to read this through within a year, because if it takes you longer than a year, you're going to forget the beginning by the time you get to the end. And honestly, I hadn't read a book in years. I read Cliff Notes in high school. And so it was a big challenge, but I managed to do it. Something that I found very helpful was to have a Bible reading plan. This is the one I'm currently working on, where you start out and I put my start date, which you can see I didn't quite finish this year, but I'm getting close. And then as I go through, I check off the days, and at the end here, I mark what week I finished or the day that I finished that row. And I gradually just work through, and then I have a record to say what I have read and what I haven't read, and then when I finish this, I just start over again. So I recommend get yourself a Bible check sheet, something that has every chapter on there, and you check it off as you go. And it also helps to have one that has a start date there at the top so that you know if it took you a year, under a year, more than a year. I was actually housed. My mom this year, she read through the whole scriptures in like 2 or 3 months faster, and I was so proud of her. I was like, wow, Mom, that was fantastic. One other piece, pace. I don't know, like it's so subjective. I would say I aim for like 5 chapters a day. Sometimes I do more, sometimes I do less. Just commit yourself to find a time of the day when you sit down, and in the morning, preferably in the morning, I think, or in the evening or in the afternoon or at lunch, and you just try to read through 5 chapters. And then sometimes I'll miss a day. Oh well, 5 chapters a day will get you done faster than a year. So you can miss a day here or there. Also, I'll have like a weekend day or a vacation day when I can just sit around and like read through an entire book, to spend more time reading more chapters. I might do 15 chapters in a day or something like that. Again, we're not trying to be bound up under a law or a rule, but I would say a nice pace, a good average is 5 chapters a day. Now, one of the fears is, oh no, if I'm reading so fast, well, I'm not going to take it all in. And the truth is, you're not going to take it all in. That's not the goal, is to take it all in. The goal is to keep walking through the vineyard of the text, making observations, seeing things, noticing things, enjoying the process. You're going to miss tons of stuff, and that is totally fine, because the next time you read it through, you're going to catch things that you didn't catch the first time. Something that I will recommend is to read through with a highlighter, and so that as you go through, you might have, like, the one time through, go through with a yellow highlighter, another time through, go through with a red highlighter or a purple highlighter, preferably things that don't bleed through the page or ruin your Bible. And Crayola twistables are my favorite. But to go through with a highlighter, A, keeps you alert, and B, helps you just to highlight pieces that you want to remember or go back to, or that particularly stood out to you, things that you can meditate on, things that you can study or look at later. The bottom line is it helps you stay active as you read. So 2 tools you've got so far, or 3. 1 is you got your Bible. 2 is you have your check sheet to just track your progress and see how you're doing. Also, it lets you, if you're doing this exercise with partners, which I highly recommend, lets you keep each other accountable. And then lastly, you're going through with a nice little Crayola twistable highlighter and staying active as you're reading. Again, not worrying about whether you're getting everything, but more just focusing on, if I'm walking with the Lord in the vineyard of his text, my hope is to meet him there. All right, now let's talk about the cost and the opposition. Let's face it, it is time. That is the biggest cost, I think. It's not overly difficult to read the scriptures. Pick a translation that you feel confident that you're able to understand and enjoy. But it is just a cost of time, and the opposition is just going to be competition for that time. And so my advice, my experience has been to just carve out a bit in the morning. At work, I would just carve out a bit at lunch. I would always try to carve out the morning and then try to squeeze a little extra at lunch, a little extra in the evening. But at least, first things first, that foundational discipline, get it done in the morning. You got to find your own time. Find someplace that works, but that's going to be the cost. It's just competing for other things that are more urgent when this is more important. So I challenge you, you look at your schedule, you think about what you can sacrifice. That's the sacrifice, is just making the time to read. On the chance, and it's probably likely that might seem like too much or too daunting, then I would say, start small and break it down. Just say, I'm going to read the New Testament. I'm just going to get through the whole New Testament, and that's it. And if you do that, great, you've accomplished something. And then maybe add to that and say, now I'm going to read through all the epistles, right? And on this particular sheet, which hopefully my kids will have, or Rachel will have, or friends of mine will have, if you like this one, read the Gospels, then read the epistles, right? And then maybe when you're done with that, you can read the law, the Old Testament, the first 5 books. But just step your way into it. And once you accomplish it, once you're able to read the whole Bible from beginning to end, it really doesn't seem like that big of a deal anymore. You'll probably read it through once a year and just keep cycling through, because it takes on a life of its own. As you become familiar with the story, as you become oriented in the story, the result, the fruit, the ability to embrace characters, embrace your roles, embrace the big picture, you're just going to like it. I don't know what else to say. As I've read the story, as I've dug into the scriptures, I just enjoy them more and more and more. They never get old. They never get tiresome. There's always something new. And that's the hope, right? It's just that once you work out and feel those muscles, that you'll say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine going back to life before working out. So set that as your goal, to read the scriptures. And then once you read the scriptures, to keep reading the scriptures. That will be the foundation for your Christian life, to know what God has said, to know it for yourself, so you're not receiving it secondhand. God forbid, we don't want to be receiving our faith secondhand. We don't want to watch the movie, we want to read the book. So may the Lord bless you. May he surprise you with the joy that happens from doing this work, and just get started and start reading.